Hello and welcome. I'm Neha Khanna and you're watching America 360. On the show tonight, President Donald Trump threatens mass layoffs as the US government shuts down. Trump talks about the war within. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth declares war on unfit generals. ICE agents assault journalists in New York immigration court. And in a bizarre plot twist, Hollywood stars fume over a new AI actress. But first, let's bring you the top political story that's making all the buzz in America. The US federal government has officially shut down after the White House and Congress failed to reach an agreement on how to extend federal funding. The Republican Party holds a majority in both chambers of Congress, but it still needs Democratic support to pass a bill in the Senate. The last shutdown was 6 years ago, that too under Trump's first administration. As the nation plunges into chaos, Donald Trump has threatened to fire a lot of federal employees. The irony is, they will anyway remain unpaid during the shutdown. Now, two unions have sued the Trump administration over the president's illegal plan to sack federal workers. Here's the full report.
Republicans are plunging America into a shutdown, rejecting bipartisan talks, pushing a partisan bill, and risking America's health care, worst of all. A few moments ago, Republicans once again rejected Democrats' proposals to avoid a shutdown, fix health care premiums, and spare Americans the calamity of skyrocketing through the roof health care costs. Republicans blocked it again.
The United States government has slipped into shutdown mode once again, the first in nearly 7 years, and this time, the blame game is uglier than ever. At the center of the storm is President Donald Trump, who is accused of weaponizing the shutdown for political gain rather than to resolve the budget deadlock.
So nothing is inevitable, but I would say it's probably likely because they want to give health care to illegal immigrants, which will destroy health care for everybody else in our country. And I didn't see them bend even a little bit when I said we can't do that. Okay?
Talks between Trump and congressional leaders collapsed late on Wednesday, with healthcare spending becoming the decisive fault line.
Trump doesn't want to lift a finger to stop healthcare premiums from more than doubling. But he is raring to go when it comes to firing whoever he wants to, or slashing whatever he wants to, or prosecuting whoever he wants to, or telling his military his opponents are enemies within, and tweeting AI nonsense and lying about whatever he wants to. Trump doesn't care about how this shutdown is going to hurt real average Americans across the country. He doesn't care about the Republican healthcare crisis. He clearly thinks this is all a game.
Democrats demanded restored funding for vital programs, while Republicans pushed for a temporary extension. But as the clock struck past midnight, the shutdown kicked in.
The whip's job in short order comes down to a very basic responsibility. You've got to be able to count to 60. I learned all the skills I needed in the first grade. I've used them in the Senate, and I've come to the conclusion that if you start off with 53 votes, as the Republicans do, they need 7 from our side. What Chuck Schumer has outlined is basic. If they want support from the Democratic side, for God's sake, sit down and let's talk it over at the table as soon as possible. There are plenty of tables in this Capitol for this purpose. We can do it.
Hundreds of thousands of federal workers are bracing for unpaid furloughs. Entire departments will shutter. And yet Trump chose to frame this chaos as a political opportunity. In his own words, he said shutdowns do a lot of good and bragged they could help cut programs he brands as Democrat things.
Well, the Democrats want to shut it down, and so when you shut it down, you have to do layoffs. So we'd be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected, and they're Democrats. They're going to be Democrats. As you know, no country can afford to pay for illegal immigration, health care for everybody that comes into the country, and that's what they're insisting. And obviously I have an obligation to not accept that. That would affect everybody. You know, when I see what we're doing with AI and all the plants that are opening up in the country, $17 trillion is coming. And if you compare that to Biden had in 4 years less than $1 trillion. We have 17 trillion, more than that. I think it's going to be much more than that, David, by the end of this year. I think it's going to be far over that. It's a record. It's already a record in 8 months. It's a record by a lot. And so we're doing well as a country, so the last thing we want to do is shut it down. But a lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things, but they want open borders. They want men playing in women's sports. They want transgender for everybody. They never stop. They don't learn. We won an election in a landslide. They just don't learn. So we have no choice. I have to do that for the country. Yes.
The federal government, by law that we passed, does not fund health insurance for undocumented immigrants in Medicaid, period. Nor the ACA, nor Medicare. Undocumented immigrants do not get federal health insurance premiums. Period. Period. They're lying. I hope you'll call them on it when they bring it up. Some of the newspapers have. Okay? I said this directly to Speaker Johnson in the Oval Office. I told him what he was saying was bull, because he said, you guys want that. And he just smirked, didn't even answer. And why are they lying? They know how unpopular their position is on health care, but they shouldn't talk about it.
The White House insists this shutdown is the Democrats' fault, but the reality is more complex. Democrats, though in the minority, use their limited leverage to demand funding for health care, something many Americans view as essential. Republicans, meanwhile, offered a short-term patch that papered over deeper disagreements. The Senate failed to pass the funding bill, needing 60 votes and falling short due to unified Democratic resistance. Now, the shutdown is real, and uncertainty is the only thing Washington is delivering. Congress will reconvene after the Yom Kippur holiday, but there's no guarantee a breakthrough is in sight.
The good news is this is a bipartisan CR now. 3 Democrats have voted with us in complete unity. We need 5 more to wake up tomorrow morning and go, this is just stupid. Because I think most normal Americans would look and they go, why are you putting the American people through this? 5 Democrats have the power tomorrow to reopen the government, and I hope they're listening, and I hope they have the courage to actually do it.
Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth held an extraordinary meeting with the top military brass on Tuesday. The highest ranks of the US military, including nearly 800 admirals and generals, were in attendance. In a deeply political speech, Trump claimed America faces a war within. He suggested the Democrat-run cities be used as training grounds for the troops. Here's a look.
I just want to thank the National Guard in Washington, D.C. It's embarrassing to say this. Now I can say it because we solved it, but Washington, D.C. was the most unsafe, most dangerous city in the United States of America, and to a large extent, beyond that. You go to Afghanistan, they didn't have anything like that. You go to countries that you would think there's problems, they didn't have that. And now Washington, D.C., after 12 days of serious intensity, we took out 1,700 career criminals. If you have 5 career criminals, they can make your numbers look very bad because they'll commit many crimes a day. But we took out 1,700, and they took them out. There was no doubt who the boss was. They did an unbelievable job. Then they started even cleaning. I said, I don't want them doing that, sir. They were cleaning it up. I drove through it 2 days ago. It was beautiful. People are walking down the street holding hands, man and wife, coming from Iowa. They're not worried about being shot. Washington, D.C. is now a safe city. In fact, I went out to dinner with my crew. I haven't done that. In theory, I wouldn't do it. And I felt totally safe. And nobody's been attacked. Nobody's been hurt. Washington, D.C. went from our most unsafe city to just about our safest city in a period of a month. We had it under control in 12 days, but give us another 15, 16 days. It's perfect. And people other than politicians that look bad, they think, the the Democrats run most of the cities that are in bad shape. We have many cities in great shape too, by the way. I want you to know that. But it seems that the ones that are run by the radical left Democrats, what they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. Controlling the physical territory of our border is essential to national security. We can't let these people in. You know, we had no people enter in the last 4 months. Zero. Even I can't believe that. You know, we had millions coming in, pouring in. 25 million all told, and of those 25 million, many of them should never be in our country. They would take their worst people and their people from prisons and jail, and they'd put them in a caravan and they'd walk up. CNN was interviewing one person. Oh, why are you coming? I want freedom. Good. Were you in jail? Yes. For what? Murder. I said, you had to see this anchor, a young woman. She's like, I couldn't believe. She'll probably lose her job, but because the left doesn't want to hear that. But we're running it based on common sense and based on love of our country. But I want to salute every service member who has helped us carry out this critical mission. It's really a very important mission. And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. Because we're going into Chicago very soon. That's a big city with an incompetent governor, stupid.
Meanwhile, Trump's defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, lectured the military brass on woke culture, fitness and grooming. In his classic rhetoric, Hegseth body-shamed the troops and stressed that no woman can qualify for combat roles. He also issued a bizarre order: no more beardos.
When it comes to combat arms units, and there are many different stripes across our joint force, the era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now. For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are.
ICE agents were caught on video shoving reporters to the floor inside a New York immigration court on Tuesday. At least one journalist sustained injuries and was hospitalized after the incident. New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani has condemned the violence. This comes days after an immigration officer was suspended for tackling a crying woman and pinning her to the ground in the same building.
Get out the elevator!
U.S. federal agents hitting journalists inside a Manhattan immigration court has set off a fresh storm in U.S. and escalated criticism of Trump administration's aggressive immigration enforcement tactics. The incident, which left a foreign journalist injured and hospitalized, underscores rising tensions at 26 Federal Plaza, a place that has increasingly become a flashpoint between ICE officers, immigrants, and the press. According to the Associated Press, visual journalist El Vural Elibal of the Turkish news agency, Anadolu, was shoved to the floor outside an elevator and hit his head. Witnesses said he was treated by a nurse on site before being carried out on a stretcher in a neck brace and taken to a hospital for evaluation. Two other journalists, Dean Moses of AM New York and freelance photographer Olga Fedorova, were also caught in the scuffle, but were not seriously hurt. The confrontation unfolded after agents attempted to detain an immigrant from Peru and were followed into the elevator by journalists covering the case, the New York Times reported. Moses described the scene bluntly, saying agents grabbed me by my arms and started pulling me out of the elevator. I tried to hold on, but I got shoved out. This comes on the heels of another troubling video showing an ICE agent shoving a woman into a wall during her husband's detention. That incident sparked an internal review at the Department of Homeland Security, raising questions about whether excessive force is becoming normalized during these routine operations. DHS officials, however, defended the agents. Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary at Homeland Security, said the crowd of reporters and activists created safety concerns and described them as agitators obstructing law enforcement duties. She claimed agents gave repeated orders to step back before force was used. New York leaders saw it differently. Governor Kathy Hochul called it abuse of law-abiding immigrants and the reporters telling their stories, while public advocate Jumian Williams and Comptroller Brad Lander condemned the violence and urged stronger oversight. State Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani went further, warning that routine violence at 26 Federal Plaza cannot be normalized. Fedorova, who has covered the court for years, said journalists had always been allowed in the hallway without issue. If they tell us to move, we move. But this time, it wasn't even clear that an arrest was happening, she said. For many, it reflects a deeper crisis. Secrecy and force replacing openness and accountability.
Donald Trump has announced a $500 million settlement deal with Harvard University, aiming to end a bitter fight over pro-Palestinian protests against Israel's genocide in Gaza. The deal includes Harvard running trade schools focused on AI and other tech skills. However, it's unclear whether the Ivy League school is ready to announce the deal. The Trump administration had cut billions in federal funding to Harvard, sparking a legal battle that recently ended with a judge blocking the funding cuts. Similar settlements were made with Columbia and Brown universities. The US president has announced a new online drugstore venture called TrumpRx.gov. The government-run website will allow Americans to purchase prescription drugs at lower prices. According to the White House, the program will cover medicines for diseases affecting 100 million US citizens. This comes as Trump reached a landmark deal with pharmaceutical giant Pfizer to offer big discounts on prescription drugs.
Thank you very much for being here. This is a very big announcement. We just, as you know, left the military to something, generals, admirals, all the top brass, and now it's a great morning. And this is other fantastic news for you because it's going to be a lowering of medical prices, drug prices, like in the history of our country has never happened before. It's favored nations, if you know what that means, but we'll talk about it. Today, I'm thrilled to announce that one of the world's largest pharmaceutical manufacturers and one of the best anywhere in the world, Pfizer, has agreed to offer countless prescription medications at major discounts in the United States as a result of the most favored nation drug pricing order that we established earlier this year. As you know, the United States was paying sometimes 10 times more than other countries for drugs, and a lot of excuses were made for that, but it went on for many years. many, many years, decades, and it's not going on any longer. We're going to be paying the lowest price. We're going to be paying whatever the lowest price is, favored nations. This will save American taxpayers and consumers hundreds of millions of dollars a year. I want to thank Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, who is one of the most respected people in the industry and in business generally. I will say that, Albert, for joining us today, along with Secretary, as you know, we got a number of secretaries. Secretary is Lutnick behind me, I hope. Where's Lutnick?
He's over here, to the right.
You can get over here. I'm looking for Lutnick. Great Secretary of Commerce. You would have been in trouble. Howard Lutnick, great. Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., CMS Administrator, Mehmet Oz, Medicare Administrator Chris Plump, and the FDA Commissioner Marty McCary, and I just want to thank them all. They've been working hard on many, many things. I think this is one of the biggest medical announcements that this office has ever made, because we're talking about price reductions, as you'll see in a couple of minutes, that are incredible. For many years, Americans have paid the highest prices anywhere in the world for prescription drugs. They paid far more, 10 times, 13 times, 15 times more than other countries for the exact same product. A major reason is that the American consumers have been subsidizing research and development costs for the entire planet. They put all of that on us, and yet they were the beneficiaries too. So it's being changed as of today. The United States had just 4% of the world's population and consumers, only 13% of all prescription drugs, yet pharmaceutical companies make 75% of their profits from the United States. So think of that. We have 4% of the market, 13% of prescription drugs, and yet, Albert, I didn't know you were that violent. I'm surprised you're doing this.
I'm getting better.
No, he's doing the right thing. Thank you. And yet they make 75% of their profits from the American customers, so it's something. That's why I signed an executive order combating this practice, and we signed it very happily a little while ago. Today, Pfizer is committing, as will other drug companies as we go through the weeks. But Pfizer is truly one of the biggest in the world and one of the greatest in the world. Today, Pfizer is committing to offer all of their prescription medications to Medicaid, and it will be at the most favored nation's prices. It's going to have a huge impact on bringing Medicaid costs down like nothing else. I told you that in my first term, I was so proud of the fact that for the first time in 28 years, drug prices came down. And I had a news conference that I explained it was 1/10 of 1%, but it was down. And here we're talking about, in one case, over 1,000%. This is a critical step forward to our work and to improve health care and hardworking, low-income Americans, especially low-income Americans, who will be helped so greatly. In addition, Pfizer is agreeing to provide some of their most popular current medications to all consumers at heavily discounted prices of anywhere between 50 and even 100%. And that's off the price. And in some cases, even more than that. These drugs will be available for direct purchase online at a website operated by the federal government. We're also announcing that moving forward, all new medications introduced by Pfizer to the American market will be sold at the reduced most favored nation costs. So we'll be paying essentially what other countries are paying, who have been much lower, much lower for many, many years. Furthermore, Pfizer will invest $70 billion to reshore domestic manufacturing facilities. In other words, they're going to bring a lot of their facilities to make their drugs and make what they make, their product. They're going to make it in the United States. I appreciate that $70 billion investment and fund research and development right here in America.
And finally, a new actress is facing massive backlash from Hollywood stars. Her name is Tilly Norwood, and she's an AI-generated actor. And human Hollywood actors are certainly not her fans. The AI character has been created by Dutch actor and comedian Elaine van der Velden, who wants Norwood to become the next Scarlett Johansson. Norwood's Instagram is full of auditions, advertisements, and spoofs. However, A-list stars like Emily Blunt, Sophie Turner, and even the Screen Actors Guild American Federation are furious over this. They say Norwood is just a computer program who has no real-life experiences, emotions and attachment to the audience. But reports say many talent agencies are looking to sign the AI actress as movie studios are quietly embracing AI-generated content. And with that, it's a wrap on America 360 tonight. If you have been, thanks for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow.